The Last of Us turns 10 this year, which I know is crazy when you consider just how much of an impact this game has had on storytelling and on critical reception, and obviously lots of spin-offs, namely the HBO show, which we will be reviewing on this channel, by the way. So make sure you come back and subscribe so you can see my thoughts on it as the show comes out. But it's crazy to think that The Last of Us is 10 years old considering the amount of remakes they've had. Because I feel like there's been just a few of those. Interestingly enough, on the Naughty Dog website, they posted a blog. This was from Neil Druckmann. You may know him. He's kind of Mr. Naughty Dog. He posted it just today. It's talking about reflecting on a big year to come for The Last of Us. Now, I got to be very honest. In my opinion, most games do a horrendous job of celebrating any sort of launch anniversary with a special event or game mode or recognition, short of some random stuff that you will find on social media, like an Instagram post or a funny little meme or something that kind of floats around online. But, you know, Nintendo missed a huge opportunity with Zelda some years ago. And then they had like the year of Mario and the year of Luigi and really iconic characters that never really got a lot of TLC. We've seen this with N7 Day over the years via the Mass Effect series, and the list goes on. So I will be really curious to see what, if anything, Naughty Dog actually brings to the table this year. Sounds like they have some pretty interesting plans, but that remains to be seen. To The Last of Us fans, Happy New Year's to all our players. We couldn't be more excited to jump into 2023. Last of Us turns 10 in June. And they talk about, you know, the fan art and the cosplay and just the wealth of just support they've gotten over the years, which has really been something interesting to see. I go to a lot of conventions where you'll see people dress up as characters and you'll see fan art and stuff for sale. And I always felt like Nintendo and The Last of Us / Mass Effect had the most rabid fans in terms of cosplay and art and music and these sort of things. I remember they did a special some time ago where the voices of Joel and Ellie came out and played a concert. They actually sat down with a guitar and they sang. And I was like, really? And people went nuts for that. So I absolutely do believe this opening paragraph that Naughty Dog has gotten some ridiculous amount of fan support over the years. It goes on to mention that the franchise has sold over 37 million copies as of December 2022. I think a lot of that has to do with all these remakes. I swear they've remade this game like 20 times. Although both Last of Us and Last of Us 2 were absolute critical darlings, received sheer amounts of praise and awards and recognition from fans and from industry, you know, the critics, the real ones, not my opinion that counts, of course. So absolutely, I feel like there's been a lot of recognition there. So 37 million is a pretty good number. They go on to talk about the PC version of The Last of Us is now coming to, actually the PC version will launch on March 3rd, which is cool. It's interesting as Sony continues to expand into that PC market. A lot of my friends who are PC master racers only have yet to experience things like God of War and Days Gone and Spider-Man. So I feel like this is a great way to bolster those numbers. I know a lot of famous streamers who have yet to play this game, who are diehard PC enthusiasts, will absolutely be checking it out, which is cool, which, you know, that's what we want. But I think the most interesting thing here is it says we'll have some fun surprises for you along the way, and we will begin to offer some details about our multiplayer game later this year. So I had really thought that this was something that was going to kind of really start to gain some traction now, maybe like January through like March, and then we would see the game launch maybe like June, July. I really thought in my head this was kind of like an E3 type of game, get everybody hyped up, definitely like a tentpole experience for Sony to build a conference around, but it doesn't seem like that's the case. It says the project continues to shape up as a fresh new experience from our studio, and they're showing off the concept art to give you kind of an idea of what to expect. This seems a lot like a survival type game. If it's anything like Factions, which was a multiplayer, but almost a play. I don't want to say Escape from Tarkov because Tarkov is so much more aggressive. Almost like a DMZ light. You've heard me talk a lot about DMZ and Warzone, where basically you start off with not a lot of gear. You have to kind of go around, loot, scavenge, build up supplies, all within a run to then be able to tackle some of the harder objectives. Open a locked door, fight harder enemies that have more armor, take down heavy infantry with rocket launchers and stuff that you scavenge along the way. I kind of feel like this is the direction this game is going in. I know a lot of people want to compare this to Factions and say, oh, this is just going to be Factions 2.0. I don't think that's going to be the case at all. I think you're going to see a lot of these large exploration areas where you're going to go off in small groups and you're going to have missions to do. And I think there's going to be a lot more dialogue. And I think this is going to evolve much more into a story-driven experience than a lot of people would have expected. And really, when you think about how long it's taken them from when The Last of Us Part 2 came out, with that engine, yes, a lot of it porting over to, PlayStation 5 tech and standards and, rebuilding a lot of that stuff, especially with the remaster and then the other remaster. I get it. They've definitely taken a lot of care and time to port tech over. But now that that's done, the toolbox is there. This should be a very simple experience to spit out if they're just going for that kind of, tack on multiplayer like we saw in Uncharted, right? Where you just basically put Drake in a room, give him a gun, spawn a bunch of enemies, run around, and that's the end of it. Here, it seems like they're taking a much different, much more creative approach, which I really appreciate. I would love to sink my teeth into a very beautiful narrative, maybe not a story in terms of like a single player campaign, but something that you invest in over time and you get to grow and build the environment around you and shape things around you. I think that's the experience they're going for. And if that is the case, I am really, really, really excited. So we'll have to wait and see what that ultimately culminates to. But since we're going to have to wait some time for the details to come out, right now, it's just speculation, unfortunately. As I mentioned before, they got The Last of Us TV show coming on HBO on January 15th. Really, really exciting to see how that works. They said that they're going to have a lot of interviews and behind-the-scenes announcements to kind of give you some appreciation of what goes on. And I'm curious how true and faithful it is to the original game, how much they've changed, creative liberties they've taken, good or bad. I can't wait. We've talked a lot on this channel about game adaptations over the years, particularly Halo, I think, really broke the mold on a lot of taking a concept that some people are lightly familiar with and then radically changing it. And I'll talk a lot more about that as we jump into The Last of Us reviews when they start airing here in a couple weeks. But interesting blog post nonetheless. I got to say, looking back at my time on Naughty Dog games, and looking back at my time on The Last of Us in particular, very, very emotionally fueled narrative games that had a very deep, long story that introduced a lot of characters, took a lot of characters away, the trials, the tribulations, the changes as everybody has kind of gone through over the years. I'll be really curious to see how they can capture that lightning in a bottle yet once again. But considering Naughty Dog has, in my opinion, a phenomenal track record of being those showcase games for the Sony PlayStation, I'm sure they're absolutely going to deliver. But if you want to read this blog post, I went through all of it, but if you want to see or look at the picture a little bit more, in the description box below, I will post a link to this Naughty Dog blog. You can check it out there. While you're over there, just dabble around that subscribe button. Consider throwing me a sub. I would greatly appreciate it. That'll wrap up today's video. Thank you so much for watching. Take care of yourselves. And until next time, I will see you guys on the other side.